to you by ISF and the Carrington Group. Legends in Leadership is an inspirational podcast featuring the stories of leaders who are making a difference. Our goal is to inspire you with the stories of leaders who come from humble beginnings, overcome challenges, and ultimately rise up to make a difference in people's lives.
Hello, welcome to Legends in Leadership. This is your host, Jason Smith with the Carrington Group. My co-host on today's podcast is Dr. Blair Ritchie, Executive Director of the International Student Foundation. Each week, we like to kick things off with our leadership trivia question. We were fascinated by the stories of leaders who come from humble beginnings, overcome challenges, and ultimately rise up to make a difference in people's lives and in our communities. So, Dr. Blair, what's our leadership trivia question for today?
Well, thanks, Jason. Got a good one for everyone today. Today's legend in leadership is a German scientist whose work truly changed the way we look at the world, including such basic concepts as light and time and gravity. But interestingly enough, as a child, he was always a little different from all the other boys. His head was a little bigger. He hardly spoke a word, and a housekeeper even labeled him as retarded. But by the age of 26, this retarded boy had earned a PhD and published important papers on such wonderful topics as the nature of light, mass energy equivalence, all sorts of wonderful things we all think about every day. He possessed a vivid imagination, a questioning mind, a tireless work ethic, and a resilient, positive attitude. This legend is remembered today, not for working years in a patent office, which he did, but for changing the way the world looks at the world. Do you know who this legend of leadership is? I'll be back at the end of the program with the answer.
Oh, great. Thank you, Dr. Blair. Looking forward to that. Our guest today is Karen Vasquez O'Donnell, and she has a truly inspiring story of growing up, becoming the leader that she is today. She's the creative director and co-founder of Crazy Ventures, a provider of business coaching services to entrepreneurs. She's a co-author of Today's Inspired Latina, Volume 4, and is currently working on her own children's book series. Karen spent 15 years as a licensed physical therapist assistant after earning an associate's degree in applied science, and in 2013 obtained a second degree, a bachelor's of science in business administration. Karen is a native of El Salvador and had humble beginnings with a thirst for success. She currently lives in Coppell, Texas with her husband and 2 sons. She enjoys traveling with her family, learning about different cultures and ways of life. She believes that real-life experiences are essential to one's personal growth. So excited to welcome Karen O'Donnell to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored that you invited me.
Sure. Well, we do like to start with the beginnings. It seems like a natural place to start. So tell us a little bit about growing up in El Salvador.
Well, El Salvador was very interesting and fun. It's a beautiful country. And so when I was 6 years old, my parents had to migrate to come to the U.S., and they couldn't bring my brother and I. My brother's only a year older. He was 7, I was 6 when they came, and so we were left in the care of family. And we had a very interesting childhood because we didn't have indoor plumbing. So we had, one of our chores was to go fetch water at a river nearby, at a creek nearby, and we got to wash clothes in the river, bathe in the river. So we got a lot of interesting real-life experiences of what it was growing up someplace else. To us was normal. The public schools, we wore uniforms and we walked to school. It was amazing. I learned so much through those times. Growing up, we had all the essentials, food and a home, humble beginnings, but, very blessed to have had the essentials. And we used to sell charcoal in the market, the local market in the city. I was about 5, and I would talk nonstop so I could get people to buy the charcoal, whether they, but they were either amused by me or maybe just annoyed. But, I would convince them.
It worked either way, right?
It worked. So a lot of small lessons that, have impacted my life, that have helped me now that I'm growing up. There were some difficult times, obviously, growing up without my parents, my mom especially, at that tender age. I've always been that child who would speak up when something wasn't right or fair, and therefore I would seem to get in trouble a lot because I would speak up, I would ask questions. I was very rambunctious and always seemed to take on a challenge. So when I missed my mom the most, I would run off to a mango tree. And as a child, you're trying to understand geography and trying to, your parents have gone to the U.S. Here I'm in El Salvador and trying to understand, but they didn't go by plane and, that young mind. So I used to climb this mango tree, and they were overlooked mountains. And I always used to wonder, like, if I ever get over to those mountains and what's behind them? What's on the other side?
Yeah.
Always that curiosity. And, like, is the U.S. there? You're trying to understand. I was still very young. And that curiosity always have served me well, because I would see, that curiosity of wanting to know more, learn more, has always helped.
Sure.
So.
And I'm curious, since you grew up in El Salvador in those circumstances, how is it that you feel is the best way to help people in those communities today?
Education. Education is a big thing, primarily because growing up, I had some classmates who didn't get to attend school sometimes. My mom is my idol. She's one of them. She had to stay back sometimes and help take care of her younger siblings, and didn't start school until later on than normal children would. And a lot of times these children have to help the parents work, and they have to be taken from school, and they may skip a year. I do remember during the coffee plantation times, the harvest lasts about 5 months, and some of the students would miss some months. They would disappear, and like, oh, where were you? Oh, well, we had to be helping the family harvest the coffee, and they would miss school. So much has improved, from when I grew up. But I still get to travel and visit remote schools where it doesn't seem like education is priority.
Okay.
So for me, I have such a bond, and including my grandparents, they didn't know how to read and write. My dad was the first to graduate high school. I was one of the first to graduate college. So each generation keeps improving, but there are still a lot of children out there where education doesn't seem to be priority, or they might not have access to it. So it's, I think that's the best way to teach them, to show them, to allow them to dream and be curious.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I'm dying to know how you get to the U.S. and reunited with your parents.
Yes. So 6 years went by. A lot had happened. A lot of difficulties, overcoming that. And my parents came back in 1992. And by that time, so I have a brother who's a year older. He's the one that has always stayed with me all my growing up years. And by the time my parents came back, I had a sister who was 2 years old.
Oh, God.
So I got to meet my sister when she was 2. So my parents came back, and we had to wait a year for our visas. So 1992 was the best year of my childhood because my mom came back.
Yeah.
I was allowed to be a child again. I didn't have the responsibilities that were put on to me with the previous people that we were living with. And we would come home from school, and my mom would have, food ready, and I could just be a kid again.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So 1992, we spent the whole year in El Salvador, and my dad had to come back to the U.S. to work, and we came to the U.S. in 1993 once our visas were granted. And we came and lived in Palmerton, Pennsylvania. It's a small town, but very, very nice. My parents had the mentality of sink or swim.
Okay.
So they're bringing this teenagers. My brother was 14, I was 13, and they're like, they need to learn English. So they bought a house in Palmerton, Pennsylvania, and my brother and I were the first in the history of the school to not know English when we first came. So it was, it was a big culture shock
Mm-hmm.
for us in learning the language, but my parents were smart. It worked. Within months, we could, speak at least at a communication level, and within a year, I would say I knew about 80%.
Wow.
So it helped. It helped a lot. And when you have no choice, and I watched a lot of TV, I'm able to mimic. So I watched Saved by the Bell.
Oh, yeah.
And which is very relatable to what I was going through, teenagers, high school. And I would watch it religiously, and I would memorize it to the point where I would memorize it. I still didn't know what many of the things I was saying, but I was able to repeat it. Mimicking is one way that I learned, and many people ask me, but your accent is not that strong. And I said, well, I would memorize the dialogue so much and repeat it so frequently that it helped. And that was one of my goals, is not to have a strong accent. So, yeah.
Well, I'm curious how some of these experiences shaped what you are today in as a co-founder of Crazy Ventures, and what the purpose and mission is behind these travel experiences and coaching and leadership experiences.
Yes. So, when you get to see the world in a different way that we live, we go through our daily lives, right? And if we don't find out how others live and what the goals they have, or just going through a simple day. We get up in the morning, we don't even think about it. We get in our cars and go off our day. Well, others could be doing it so differently, but yet still be happy. And with Crazy Ventures, we provide the business coaching services to be able to help entrepreneurs build and design a business that can run itself. So they can now be away from their day-to-day work day and be able to explore and pursue other passions that they may have, and therefore be able to influence others. So through the coaching process, at the end of the year, there's an annual 2-day coaching session, and we would love to implement and tell our clients that they can implement a traveling experience, and where they get to see how others live, how maybe get back to the community. And we tend to visit schools,
okay,
and be able to give these children a little bit of hope. The children look at you with this little glimpse in their eyes, this little sparkle when you visit, and you provide that little bit of hope, or be an example to them that, they get curious and they wonder, and it starts getting their imagination going.
Yeah.
So, and we would love to influence our clients in that way, impact them in that way, to be able to provide them, traveling. There is a saying that it makes you a storyteller, and being able to connect with others, it's incredible. You're like-minded, and the bond that you create and the adventures that you can have are very inspiring. And then you come back with that fuel. Mm-hmm. You're re-energized, and it stimulates the way you think. It changes. It gives you a little shift.
And what do you think holds people back from taking their first steps towards these sort of travel experiences, broadening their horizons? What's holding them back from really taking advantage of those types of opportunities?
Fear. A lot of times it's fear, and I could tell you that for myself. having had the opportunity to grow in this in an environment that I did in a developing country, and being fluent in that language and being fluent, the fluency in the culture, you know, even then, I'm a mom, and when we take these trips, we always go as a family. So you always, you know, worry about safety. The media sometimes does not help because it fuels that to us. And I think that's what prevents a lot of us, you know, and I include myself because I do a lot of research. I don't just go to these places without knowing. You have to be, one thing I teach my children is you have to be street smart, you know, and you just do a lot of research, and I'm able to make friends quite easily. And I have a lot of connections and local friends and people who are trustworthy, that I know I take that upon myself, that I wouldn't just take anybody someplace where I wouldn't know, where someplace where I wouldn't be myself, where I have those contacts. So fear is what holds us back, many of us, you know, because we do go and enjoy the amenities of what traditional travel is like, you know, at a resort. But we always wander outside our boundaries. My husband and my children, we're able to do that. And with local contacts is how you get to explore that other side of traveling.
So a Crazy Ventures experience is really about having fun, enjoying, while being able to experience the local culture. So not being maybe limited to that resort location, venturing outside of that and really seeing what is it that the locals experience.
Yes, and primarily, and how can you apply that to yourself and to your business? You know, how can that change you as a person?
Yeah.
And how you can then come back and apply it, you know, in your personal life and your business, because that's how we grow. Because a lot of times we get complacent and we hit a plateau, and we need that little boost or just something to kickstart us into something new.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's just bonding with like-minded individuals, and, you know, and it doesn't necessarily have to be another country. There's so many different places even here within the U.S. that you can have that experience with, you know. Go skydiving. That would surely, you know, you can do that here. And so it's just a matter of trying something new, getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So there's always people in our lives who are dream bashers, who knock us down and lower us, and then there are dream builders.
Yes.
And you're one of those, obviously. So have you always been that way, or how did you become such a positive dream builder type of a person?
I've always been so curious, you know, in a good way, and stubborn. And the one thing I've now analyze about my life is I would see things. I'm a very visual person. So my parents, when they came from the U.S., they brought back this album, and the cover of the album has this windy road that appears to not have an end, and is lined with these pine trees. So in my head, I'm like, as a child, you know, very naively would think, oh, do all the roads are like that in the U.S.? And where is that windy road? Where does it lead? And that curiosity. And sometimes it still happens to me. I may be driving to the same place, and I'm a very habit-forming person, and I only go the same way. But then there's always that road that, like, well, where does it lead? You know, so since very young, I've always been triggered by seeing things. So growing up, I used to watch the Flintstones. And this is, again, this very little naive, you know, child in El Salvador watching the Flintstones. And they used to bowl. That Fred Flintstone's his favorite sport, right? Bowling. So I always used to wonder, like, what is it like to go bowling? So when I came to the U.S., obviously, that was one of the first things I wanted to do. I wanted to go bowling, you know. Then while in the U.S., I used to watch a lot of TV. Mainly because it would inspire me. So I saw somebody skydiving. So I wanted to go skydiving. I said, one day I will go skydiving, you know. Somebody was taking a road trip and they went through Devil's Tower. I saw Devil's Tower. So I figured, you know, I want to go there one day. And my children's inspirational book series are that. I want to be able to create, based on our adventures, be able to create these images of places that we've been. And if I can take those books to those children in these developing countries and show them those pictures and be able to trigger and spark that curiosity and, to dream big. That's my goal. That's what I would love to do.
Well, I'm curious about who you look to as inspirational or motivational, or who helps you continue to build yourself up as a leader, an author, a speaker, a coach, or a public figure.
Yes. My parents, hand down, especially my mom. She's my idol. She's very strong. She has worked very hard all her life, and she's just an amazing person. So I look up to her a lot. She achieved her goals, and her goals was to give us, the opportunity to have an education, the opportunity to have the life that we now enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the last question we like to ask each of our guests is just to share with us a book that has inspired you from a leadership perspective, and what is a nugget that you took away from that book that just helps you continue to grow and be the leader.
Yes. The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. It's a very inspirational book. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away, but he left this incredible book to share his life and the last months of his lives, and to inspire us to live it to the fullest, because we never know when it's our time to go. So just take risks, take chances, live it to the fullest. And I apply that especially as a mom for my children, to want to not be as serious and kind of let them enjoy life. And it's definitely a very inspirational book that I recommend. If you want to just spark some type of feeling of wanting to get out of your plateau and go out there and enjoy an adventure and live life to the fullest.
Yeah, and sort of avoiding that sense of regret in the future, certainly. And it sometimes I think it takes a tragedy, someone passing maybe too soon, for us to take stock and realize what's really important, and how we become leaders amongst ourselves.
Exactly. It's just we need that inspiration.
Right.
So who we surround ourselves with, it's critical. You want to be with like-minded individuals that support you, that inspired you.
Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure to have you with us here today. I appreciate you making time to share some of your stories and some of your insights about leadership.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Blair, we'll throw it back over to you for our leadership trivia answer.
Be glad to. And before I do that, I want to echo thanks to Karen. You're a breath of fresh air, girl. And I just love your perspective on life, and it's contagious. And I'm a better person because of today. So thank you for sharing your story. Yeah, our answer to this legend in leadership, some thought he was a little bit retarded, but he turned out pretty smart. I think Albert Einstein is the answer to this one. So Albert Einstein is our legend in leadership answer today.
Yeah. Well, Blair, with the couple of minutes we have left, I wanted to get an update from you on the upcoming ISF Gala, and maybe tell us a little bit about the big 10-year anniversary event coming up.
Be glad to. ISF has this wonderful vision of coming alongside of foster care youth as they age out, and they have this dream of a college education, and we provide scholarships, mentors, and leadership development. What's really cool, Karen's one of our new mentors as well, so she's actually inspiring ISF students with her leadership as well. And the way we fund those scholarships is through an annual gala that is coming up on October the 13th here in Dallas. Such a great opportunity to not only celebrate, this is our 10th one, and so we have a wonderful entertainment part of the gala, but also most importantly, it's a chance to inspire people with great stories and to really release resources that can be put to great use in helping these students get a college education, which, Karen, as you mentioned, is one of the keys to really achieving your dreams. And so if people are available to come to the gala, there's still a few seats left, and we'd love to have you. If not, you can always go on to the isfsite.org website to learn more about that, as well as our vision, and even to make a donation to that scholarship fund.
Great.
We would appreciate that greatly.
It's a 10-year anniversary. Is anything out of the ordinary or over the top for the 10-year gala?
Well, we were tasked with that by our board of directors. This has to be something a little bit different, something special. So we really do. We have a fascinating entertainment component, which is unique to the gala. Over the last few years has become a Taste of Chamberlain's event, which Chef Richard Chamberlain is a wonderful Dallas chef who helps us with the menu, and so it's a great event for culinary reasons. But this year we have two entertainers. We're giving a Community Impact Award to a young man in Plano who is an American Idol finalist, Ron Boltinguez, and Ron is a great singer. He's going to be singing a couple of his songs that are great. And then we also have Jason Bishop as our key entertainer. Jason Bishop travels the world, really, with his wonderful illusionist. He's a magician illusionist. Wow. And it's really a great show. What's interesting is both Ron and Jason were foster kids. And they grew up in the foster care system, and they overcame all those obstacles that come with that to become world-class entertainers. And that's kind of fits the ISF mission. You know, these kids have to overcome so many obstacles, and they are doing that. So it's going to be a great night, and we're excited about celebrating 10 years of ISF galas. Yeah,
well, I'm looking forward. I'm definitely going to attend myself. And as you said, if people wanted to learn more or maybe purchase some of the few remaining tickets, what was the website?
Go to our ISF site, which is isfsite.org/events, and you'll find the gala all over it.
Oh, great. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Blair. Well, folks, on behalf of myself and Dr. Blair of ISF, I want to thank you for tuning into this podcast today. Special thanks to our guest, Karen, for sharing some of her stories and visions of leadership. Remember this: if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader.
Legends in Leadership is brought to you by ISF and Carrington Group. ISF is committed to leadership development for aged-out foster care and orphan youth. ISF's mission is to transform these youth into tomorrow's leaders with scholarships, mentoring, and leadership training. Google International Student Foundation to learn more. Carrington Group is a family office with a passion for helping business leaders and their families make smart choices and fulfill their highest aspirations. Google Carrington Group Dallas, Texas to learn more.
Securities offered through Regulus Advisors, LLC. Member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Regal Investment Advisors, LLC, and SEC-registered investment advisor. Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors are affiliated entities. Carrington Group and this broadcast are independent of Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors.